June 14, 2025 to 0923 hours. What started as a routine U.S. Navy patrol would, within minutes, become the closest the world has come to World War III in over half a century. A Chinese warship made a move no one expected, a provocation so blatant it dared the United States to respond. The only question: would American restraint hold, or would someone blink first? Intro: the calm before the storm. The USS Princeton, a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser, was conducting a textbook freedom of navigation patrol through the South China Sea. Nothing unusual. Same waters, same route, same mission: to remind the world that international sea lanes don't belong to Beijing. But at 0923 hours, her SPY-1 radar system lit up with something that would snap every sailor aboard into razor focus. Chinese Type 052D destroyer, Zhoneng to 200 kilometers off Princeton's bow, suddenly surged from 18 to 30 knots in under 90 seconds. That kind of movement wasn't just strange. It was tactical. Unknown to the Americans, the Chinese captain had just received direct orders from Beijing: intercept the Americans. Make them blink first. Beijing had thrown the dice. But what they were about to learn, painfully, is why no Navy on Earth can challenge the United States on open water without paying the price: freedom of navigation and the unseen stakes. This wasn't some rogue patrol. The Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, USS Nimitz, and her strike group, the most powerful floating formation in human history, were performing a mission U.S. sailors have executed for nearly 80 years: keeping global sea lanes open, 180 nautical miles from any Chinese-claimed reef. In international waters sat $3.4 trillion in annual trade routes, the arteries of the global economy. Vessels from Singapore, Korea, and beyond depended on that safe passage. A Singaporean container ship stacked with semiconductors. A South Korean LNG tanker carrying $200 million in fuel. All of them now in potential danger if the Chinese wanted a fight. First contact. Situational awareness unfolds. At 0926, Princeton's Combat Information Center completed its threat classification. A Type 052D destroyer, confirmed. Threat level: moderate to high. Her tactical action officer, cool behind a bank of monitors and with 122 vertical launch cells at his disposal, watched the destroyer's vector close. The math was brutal. At 30 knots, the Chinese vessel would reach weapons engagement range in just 17 minutes. Her YJ-18 anti-ship missiles could close the remaining distance in under 4 minutes, once launched, but Princeton wasn't exactly helpless. Her SM-6 interceptors had a range of 240 nautical miles. The Chinese ship would barely cross the engagement threshold before being turned into scrap. At 0929, the captain requested probable intent. The answer came fast: hostile posturing. The recommendation: go to general quarters. The captain's reply: let's see how badly they want to embarrass themselves. Chaos in crowded waters. This wasn't just warship versus warship. The South China Sea was dense with merchant traffic. Over 46 commercial vessels within 50 miles. The Chinese weren't just endangering a U.S. warship. They were risking a multinational economic crisis. To turn international waters into their own private lake. They'd first need to win a fight against a U.S. Navy that hadn't lost a surface engagement since World War II. Network warfare, U.S. Navy style, by 0930. Princeton's Cooperative Engagement Capability, CEC, automatically distributed. Sensor data across the entire carrier strike group. The Nimitz adjusted her flight ops with precision. Destroyers Jung-hoon and Kidd took station to form a defensive screen. The shield was up. Then came the escalation. At 0935, An orbiting E-2D Hawkeye detected multiple launches from the Chinese carrier Shandong. J-15 fighters, climbing hard, heading south, but not fast enough. The American air controllers noticed something amusing. The J-15s were struggling to gain altitude. Why? The Chinese ski jump launch system? No catapults meant reduced fuel and weapons loads. Their entire launch strategy was flawed. Then sonar chimed in. A submerged contact, 80 nautical miles out. Probable. Type 039 diesel-electric submarine. The kicker? It was loud. So loud it may as well have been playing Taylor Swift on underwater speakers. An amateur mistake that no serious submarine captain would allow. China wasn't just being aggressive. They were attempting a multi-domain intimidation. Display using platforms better suited for a naval museum. The American counterstroke begins by 937. The Nimitz's flight deck erupted in organized chaos. Super Hornets from VFI-14 Tougheters launched at 45-second intervals, wings loaded and hungry. Steam hissed. Deck crews moved like choreography. The skies above the South China Sea are about to get crowded. And slash a G79 AES, radars on board. The FA-18s locked on to J-15s at extreme range. The technological mismatch was glaring. American fighters saw everything. Chinese fighters, using outdated mechanically scanned arrays, were essentially flying blind. Each U.S. aircraft was linked via Link 16, sharing sensor data in real time. The J-15s had no such capability. Their comms were voice-based. 1980s tactics in a 2025 fight. Then came the Growlers. The EA-18G Growlers established jamming orbits and fired up their ALQ-99 pods. Instantly, Chinese radar screens became modern art. False contacts, ghosts, clones, FA-18s multiplying, vanishing, and shifting positions in the blink of an eye. The J-15s were flying into a cloud of electronic illusion. The Americans spread into the wall formation, multiple altitude stacks, mutually supporting fields of fire. It was a flying meet. Grinder, the Chinese, still flying in tight formations, dependent on visual confirmation to coordinate. Predictable, vulnerable, already losing. A comedy of errors. Chinese aggression peaks. At 0943, AUSRC 135 rivet joint, orbiting at 40,000 feet, intercepted. Chinese pilots asking for permission to perform aggressive passes, not shoot, not engage. Just buzzed. American pilots, trained at Top Gun and bred for initiative, laughed. By the time the order came down from Beijing, the tactical situation would have changed 4 times. At 0947, things escalated fast. The Chinese destroyer locked its fire control radar onto Nimitz. Not search mode, fire control mode. In naval terms, it's like pointing a loaded gun inside Princeton CIC. Alarms pinged, but the response? Calm, measured. American fire control radars remained on standby. Restraint, not weakness. Readiness without recklessness. The Chinese ship held the lock for 30 seconds, just long enough to say, "We could have," but not long enough to trigger retaliation. Top Gun discipline meets reckless bravado. Then came a stunt that could have changed history. A Chinese J-15 broke formation and executed a thump. A close flyby meant to intimidate an American Super Hornet. Wrong move. The FA-18 pilot rolled inverted, pulled into the J-15 6 o'clock. Helmet-mounted display. Lit up with a perfect lock. One squeeze of the trigger, and an AIM-9X Sidewinder would have made the Chinese fighter an instant fireball. He didn't squeeze. Professionalism, not impulse, won the day. Underwater checkmate. Meanwhile, China's Type 039 sub made its move by making a mistake. It raised its snorkel at 15,000 yards. A desperate act to recharge batteries. Princeton's sonar had been tracking it for over an hour. If this had gone hot, that submarine would have had 12 seconds to live. But it didn't stop there. A knockout blow, naval dominance on display. At 14:30 hours, the Nimitz launched 48 aircraft, the largest show of carrier power in years. Super Hornets, Growlers, Hawkeyes. The sky went dark with American air power. The Growlers jammed everything. Chinese screens turned to noise. They couldn't tell a bird from a bomb. And then, the finale. A Virginia-class U.S. attack submarine that had been shadowing the Chinese force for 8 days suddenly surfaced 6 nautical miles from the Shandong. No torpedo, no missile, just a message. Water cascaded off her sail in the afternoon sun. Chinese lookouts saw it. Cameras snapped. Their entire anti-submarine net, sonobuoys, helicopters, sensors had missed it. If this had been war, your carrier would already be gone. She stayed surfaced for 90 seconds, then vanished back into the deep. American fighters ran combat maneuver drills around exhausted, low-fuel J-15s. The Chinese fighters, already launched, at half-weight, began to withdraw. Unable to sustain the engagement. By 1623, the Shandong began retreating. Official Chinese statements spoke of completed drills. But the reality was obvious to everyone. They came to intimidate and left humiliated. They'd tried to challenge American sea power. Instead, they got a front-row seat to what happens when you provoke the most powerful navy on Earth, the South. China Sea is 1.3 million square miles of strategic water. Beijing wants to own it. Washington refuses to budge. Both are armed, ready, and watching. So here's the question. How long until someone stops blinking and starts shooting? Ready to assist.